My name is Robert McTeer. I'm one of the project managers here at NHSL Digital Department. I was responsible for the implementation of the MORSE community application, which replaced the ageing MIDAS system in the community. Firstly, I just want to thank the service for the nomination for the big shout out. It really means a lot to know that the people that are using the system on a day-to-day basis are getting a lot out of it, and that the support mechanisms that were put in place at the time of the go live worked at the time and are still working to this day. MORSE was quite unique in that it was one of the first projects, implementations of its kind, to be implemented during the global pandemic. The first wave of services was implemented in October of 2020. So a lot of the planning for MORSE and the implementation itself was done remotely, using technologies such as Microsoft Teams and that sort of remote engagement, which I think was challenging for not only the digital department but the service. But after a while working in that way, in that fashion, I think both the project team and the service really warmed up to that way of working. So the way that MORSE was implemented was in a phased fashion. Wave 1, which was district nursing long-term conditions. Wave 2, which was children and family services, health visiting and school nurses. And Wave 3, which was mental health and addictions. That phased implementation had to be approached in that manner because of a large-scale digital migration of all the data that came over from Tayside. So over a period of 2.5 years we implemented the system. In the early days, when the global pandemic had kicked off, we had to go from a fully on-site support model, people based at sites, to a more blended sort of approach, so remote, telephone, Microsoft Teams. But I think a massive credit goes out to the people that actually nominated themselves to go out and be based at the sites, PPE on, and for weeks on end sat with the users. So that front end support on the sites, helping users, was bolstered by the remote support team and the community apps team. And just to drop a few names, we had Laura Jarvie on site, with Carol McCool and the extended training team, and our clinical support workers in Pauline Sconville and Lisa Gartshaw, who were out on site helping with the implementation. On-site support model was bolstered with a strong back-end sort of remote support model with Christopher Patience, Eddie Curry, Elizabeth McClure and Mark McHugh, who were on the phones daily and are still on the phones to this day supporting the system. So a lot of challenges with regards to support, but as the project matured, we went from a blended sort of on-site and remote to fully remote, which is now the way that MORSE implementations take place. It's a fully remote support model, again embracing those technologies like Microsoft Teams. MORSE was a complete change to the way that the clinical service kind of operates. So it's the community-based application which is used as the main APR for capturing clinical data. It's quite unique in that the old system, MIDAS, you had to be physically sitting at a PC to capture that clinical information. So quite often you'd go and do a home visit, the clinician would come back and then find a PC to update their information and fill in clinical assessment forms. MORSE is different in that it's functional on an iPad. So you can actually take that iPad out to the patient's home, sit with them, do your assessment, fill in the details on the iPad, return to site and synchronise your device, and which uploaded it to the server. So it was very time saving for the clinicians, and hopefully the service are getting the benefits out of that now. I think the success of the MORSE project isn't just down to the digital department and the mechanisms that we put in place, but also the service staff for embracing that new way of working. There's no such thing as a digital project. They're joint projects with the service, and they were absolutely fantastic from the start. I think MORSE came at a really good time because there was obviously challenges with going back to site and sitting next to people during the pandemic and uploading information, but if you have your iPad with you and you can go out to the patient's home and do all your clinical assessment there in the patient, there's no real need to go back to site and sit next to someone during the pandemic and upload your information. You just click a button when your NIC's got Wi-Fi enabled and it uploads all the information. So it was a complete change which the service embraced massively.